everybody. This is Demira Virgil, and I am your host of Kweenduhm Conversations podcast. Today, I have Dr. Miesha Ponder, and she has an amazing testimony. She's been through a very long journey, and I think that it's very important that she come on here and she talk to you about her story. It is awareness. And she taught me a lot of things that I did not know. When I got off the phone with her, I had some moments where I was like, okay, let me see what this is, because I really didn't understand it. So I think that it's important that we have these conversations. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Miesha Ponder.
Good evening or good afternoon if you're out west. So like Demira said, I'm Dr. Miesha Ponder, and I'm fine with being called Miesha. But yeah, so I am an 8-year breast cancer survivor. I was diagnosed in 2016 with stage 2B, ERPR negative, HER2 positive, invasive ductal carcinoma. And it was stage 2B, meaning that my tumor was not larger than 3 centimeters, and I had one positive lymph node, but it didn't go anywhere else in my body. Being ERPR negative means that I had no hormone receptors in my cancer. So my cancer hormones didn't activate it. So that's the estrogen, progesterone hormones. But the HER2 positive is what possibly saved my life, because if you are ERPR negative and HER2 negative, then you're triple negative. Okay. And we'll get into triple negative breast cancer in just a moment. But I was HER2 positive, which means that I had to take a medicine in addition to my chemo through my port, but I had to take it for a whole year. So I did the chemo and the Herceptin, and then I had to continue the Herceptin until the full year, whereas my chemo was just 6 rounds. And being HER2 positive, it just means that you have a shell around your cancer cells and the chemo can't penetrate it. So when you are HER2 positive, there's a special medication that can penetrate that shell to let the chemo in. And that's why you do the Herceptin for longer than the chemo. The chemo in your body.
So let me ask you this. Is it common to have HER2 positive?
So I don't have the statistics in terms of what's most common. I will say that triple negative breast cancer is more common than any of the positives for Black women. And it's growing, and the numbers are increasing.
So what's the difference between when you have hormones in it versus when you don't?
So it means that your female hormones are feeding your cancer. So if you are ERPR negative, then a lot of those women have to be on a medication well after chemo called tamoxifen. And if you're on tamoxifen, some people are on for 5 years, some people are on for 10 years. And most of the women who are ERPR negative, and I don't want to say most to where I can't put a number with it, right? But a lot of women are into forced menopause. So no matter how old you are, when you're diagnosed, you will have to, more than likely, it's going to send you into menopause. And then also it can lead to, especially if you're metastatic and you're ERPR positive, it can lead to below the belt cancers. So a lot of women have hysterectomies so that their lady parts are not producing cancer cells.
Oh, wow. So is that why some women who are breast cancer survivors can't take estrogen? They can't have estrogen?
Yes.
Okay.
Because the estrogen could trigger cancer cells.
Oh, wow. So can you tell us how the beginning of this journey started for you?
And I didn't say the disclaimer, Demira. Okay. Everything I say here is my own words. I'm not representing any entity. And also, always check with your doctor. I'm sharing my story and how I understand breast cancer trends and statistics to be based on organizations that I'm affiliated with. However, I'm not representing anyone but myself, okay? And the Lord. Because I don't want women to go to their doctor and be like, Dr. Ponder said. I do not have a medical degree. I have a PhD in communication, culture, and media. I do not have a medical degree. I cannot save your life. unless I do some research on it. So,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
so I want to be clear about that as well. Please re-ask your question. I'm so sorry.
How did the beginning of this journey start for you?
Okay, so I call this the NDA, the Neosha Disclosure Agreement. So it's a chapter in my book called NDA. But so I graduated, so I live in Washington, D.C., and I was in graduate school from 2008 to 2015, earning a Master of Arts and then a PhD. And then I went straight through. So for basically Obama's whole presidency, I was in school. And I finally graduated in 2015. And a year later, while teaching part time at two different universities, Howard University, which is where is my alma mater, where I did my master's and my PhD, and Trinity Washington University, both here in DC. I was looking for a job, interviewing, and in 2016, a year later, I know it sounds weird, but I was adjusting my boob in a tank top, laying in the bed, catching up on my DVR. Fridays was the only day of the week where I could like sleep in and I have meetings with students and I have to go to campus. So it was like my quote unquote off day or my self-care day. And I'm laying in the bed on the phone with my sorority sister and I adjusted my boob in a tank top like this. And a lot of us would just untwist the tank top, but my boob had fallen out the tank top. And I wasn't busty. So it had fallen out. So I just did this and I felt him. His name was Clarence. This was Friday, April 8th, 2016 at 5:37 p.m.
Oh, wow.
And that's how my journey started. And God said to me, as plain as I'm talking to you and your viewers right now, He said, "This is why you can't find a job. I have a bigger job for you."
Oh, wow.
I was formally diagnosed about 2 weeks later. So I had to hold on to that news for 2 weeks. And it was very hard because I'm very close to my family and I have close friends and I'm very strong in my faith. So I wanted to pray. I wanted to do all these things with someone, but I didn't want to not have answers. So as someone who is a forever academic person, I wanted to make sure I had as much information as possible because I know how people are. So I wanted to give them as much information as possible, especially because this is such a life-changing situation. The day when doves cried. So I will say I went to my primary care physician. This was my first time meeting this primary care physician because I wasn't going to the doctor for anything but an annual checkup. And this was, I think, around the time that they changed the pap smears to be every 5 years, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember the year, but I would go for an annual checkup, but I had never met her. And she felt Clarence and she was not alarmed. And Clarence is very pronounced. I'm gonna be honest with you, okay? You couldn't miss him. Anyone who touched my boob, they was like, oh, even the guy that I had, the only person outside of myself who had touched my boobs in like over a year, I had to invite him over to my house and let him touch it. And he jumped back because it was so pronounced. And he said, so are you saying that? And he was just, his reaction was priceless, to be honest. Like he was almost in tears. He's really strong in his faith. We're still friends to this day. But it was one of those things where when my doctor touched it and how she downplayed it. So that's where the disparities come in, right? To where I'm 36 years old, I'm healthy, and I have no family history. So let me just let your viewers know this, and this is a fact. 85% of breast cancer survivors that we know of have no family history. I'm not good at math. That's not my ministry. I got 3 degrees in communication, sis. Okay. But for there to only be 15% of breast cancer survivors who have a family history, and yet that's the first question everyone asks.
So let me ask you this, because of your age, what about mammograms? When you went to go get your annuals?
So no, because I was 36. So that's the thing. Mammograms start at 40, right? So unless you're doing your self exams, which I did regularly, that's how I also know that when you hear the stories about how stress can cause tumors, I believe that my tumor came to the surface due to stress of me looking for a job. Because, I gotten to the point where I was seeing a therapist. I was starting to doubt myself because, I had been in school my whole life and I could not find a job. And so the doctor, just to appease me, she said, okay, Dr. Ponder, I'll just go out there and schedule an appointment for a mammogram and ultrasound. I'll go ahead and put that order in for you. And I was like, thank you. Because it was like, she was so nonchalant. I can't say it enough. She was very nice. She's, oh, it could be a cyst, it could be this. I know my body. I don't have dense breasts. I don't have lumpy boobs. I know my body. So there was nothing she could say to me to make me dismiss what God said to me.
Do you think that she would not have scheduled a mammogram if you weren't persistent about it? If you'd have been like, oh, okay, maybe
Yeah.
it's just,
Yeah.
wow. Okay.
Yeah. And then it would have become larger. And I was, my tumor was 2.8 centimeters. And
Mm,
remember, I said stage 3 is 3 centimeters.
mm.
Yeah.
So, can a doctor tell how long a tumor has been there? Once they gave you the mammogram, they don't know how long, like 6 months, 3 months, could have been there for years. Wow. Okay.
So the day that I had my mammogram, so this was April 18th when I saw my primary care physician. And then 3 days later, I went and had the mammogram done. And it was the day when doves cried. So I was walking. I had meetings with students all that afternoon. I scheduled it intentionally late in the afternoon so I could go do my appointment. Because I'm thinking they're going to do the mammogram, do the ultrasound, and then I'm going to be able to go to my office and meet with my students. I had a whole plan for the day. I was going to go to Potbelly, get my sandwich, whole thing. And yeah, none of that happened, of course. So I'm walking to Howard Hospital to have my mammogram and ultrasound done. My cousin calls me and tells me Prince died.
Mm.
And I didn't believe it because it wasn't trending yet. So I told him, don't worry about it. They've been trying to kill him ever since Michael died. By the time I get to the hospital, which was like half a block away from where I was, everybody was talking about Prince died. Even the woman who checked me in at the breast imaging center. And everybody at Howard University Hospital is blackity black. FYI, okay? They're all your aunties and your family and stuff, but sometimes you don't want that familiarity. And so I check in, and the woman in her island accent, she's like, did you hear that Prince died? I was like, but I just need this golf ball in my boob check. But so I go and have my mammogram. The text says, do you want the doctor to look at it now? Do you want to wait? Or do you want her just to call you? I said, she could call me. I go have my ultrasound. The tech in the ultrasound room never did my ultrasound because the doctor looked at my mammogram film and burst into the ultrasound room. She just couldn't believe what she saw. She came in and the doctor, the radiologist, did my ultrasound, which that usually doesn't happen because you have techs to do it. And then they interpret it. She never got a chance to interpret my ultrasound because she knew what she saw on the mammogram film. But she did my ultrasound, and I was very cool about everything. Even with her bursting in there, telling the tech to get my doctor on the phone and all this stuff, I was very cool about it because, again, I'm just ready to start treatment. I know what it is. God already confirmed it. God already told me I had to fight when I told him that I wasn't ready. And I just went ahead and just became very zen. And the doctor, she didn't like that. She said, so first when she did the ultrasound, she saw clearance, and then she saw a lymph node in my armpit. And she said, oh yeah, you have a fatty lymph node here, and I see the lump there. Then she told the tech to get my doctor on the phone because she couldn't believe that the doctor wasn't more pressed and there was no sense of urgency from my doctor. So the thing she did that I needed in that moment was she gave me that auntie moment. And I didn't know I needed it until she did it. So she's asking me these questions and talking to me, and I'm like very cool, calm. And she goes, sit up. And I sat up on the table, and she took my hands like this. And she said, are you Christian? And I said, yes, ma'am. I said, I go to Reed Temple AME Church in Glendale, Maryland, where Reverend Dr. Lee P. Washington is the senior pastor, the whole little rundown. Then she said, do you have family here? My Lord. I broke down crying because it's the same as if you're in the emergency room and they're like, where's your family? Like, she knew without a doubt. She didn't need a biopsy to confirm it. She knew what she was looking at. And she said, and I started crying. She said, we're not going to cry because you just told me you were Christian. And I said, yes, ma'am. She said, you need to tell your family. She said, I've been doing this for 35 years. And she's retired now, but I've been doing it for 35 years and I know what I see. And even to this day, when I tell that story, I get chills because it was what I needed in that moment. I needed that auntie moment. And I'm a professional auntie, so I appreciate that forever. So that's really how my journey really started. I was there for almost 5 hours or so. I just remembered going home and it was late and the sun wasn't setting because it was daylight savings. But I just don't remember. It was a beautiful day. I remember going there, but when I left, I don't know what it looked like outside. My legs felt like jello.
Oh, wow.
And the first call that I made was to my sister in ministry. She was a chaplain for the young adult ministry at my church.
Oh,
I'm so
okay.
proud of her. But she was in seminary at the time. And I called her and she prayed with me. And I asked her, how do I tell my family? I just didn't know, how do I start it? And she said, maybe crack a joke or something, lighten the mood and whatnot. And I think that kind of started my whole theme of trying to laugh through the pain and through the fear and whatnot, and also prayer. But she prayed with me and it really gave my spirit peace in that moment. And yeah, and that kind of started the whole roller coaster.
Okay, so I've been writing some things down and I'm asking you questions from a perspective of a woman who probably really doesn't know anything about this. She
Yes,
may
ma'am.
even be younger, she may
Mhm.
be older. I know some older ladies who are 60, 70, 80, and then we're going to talk about that too, but they've never had a mammogram. They don't go to the doctors, and then we'll
Yeah.
talk about that in a minute. But
Mhm.
you said that your lymph node. So let's talk about lymph nodes real quick because you said that your lymph node was swollen. Did you have any type of warning, any type of discomfort, any type of pain? I move this way, there's something going on, like nothing at all. You didn't even feel that it was swollen there. Nothing.
It was in my armpit.
Okay. And so it
So
was deep in there, and so you couldn't feel
yeah,
it.
I couldn't feel
Okay.
it. But I will say that when they removed 11 lymph nodes from my body and tested them, and only one of them was positive for cancer. That's how I knew I wasn't metastatic. Okay. And I believe that my cancer stemmed from deodorant.
Really?
I do. It's funny because I wore deodorant to my mammogram. Have you had a mammogram before?
Yes.
So they tell you don't wear deodorant, right? No
Yes.
one told me not to wear deodorant. When I scheduled the appointment, they didn't tell me that. I would have remembered that. So I had to wash my armpits before the mammogram and everything. And then, mind you, she only mammogrammed the one side at first. And then after the ultrasound, then she because my concern was that one side. So this wasn't a annual checkup mammogram. This was I'm concerned about this lump. So when the doctor was so concerned about what she saw on the ultrasound and the mammogram film, then she said, you have to go and get your other breast mammogram now. So that, remember I told you I was there for hours. My appointment was at 12:30. I didn't leave there until it had to have been after 6 o'clock. The hospital was almost empty. It was late.
So I'm wondering, is it normal to just do one? Let's say they only did the left and then nothing came back, but then you may have something going on with the right. So
I think
it's
that
weird
they
that
would.
they wouldn't do.
Right. I didn't ask for both personally because I didn't
Oh,
feel anything in my right. I didn't ask for both. But I
okay.
will say that if they looked at it and said, I don't think it's anything to worry about. It looks like it's calcification. It looks like it's a cyst. I think they would have said, let's check the other one. I do.
Okay. Okay.
But I don't know. Also, I think that people are very afraid of mammograms, right? It bothers them, concerns them. They don't want nothing found. My oncologist, when I first met with him, the first after exchanging the pleasantries and him going over because I had seen another oncologist just trying to see who's the best fit for me. And the other one I didn't really care for. It was a little rude, actually. But my oncologist, he asked for me to get a 3D mammogram that day. And I will say 3D mammograms, they don't squeeze your boobs between the plates. It's like a machine that goes around the area, but they're not squeezing them. I like the fact that I had the traditional mammogram and the 3D mammogram. And that was the only mammograms I've ever had.
So whenever I've had conversations with some women, there is a fear. They say that it hurts and it's uncomfortable to have a mammogram.
Especially when you don't have much boob. Like I'm 5'2". So I had to get on my tiptoes to get the boob on there, and I was a C cup. I wasn't a big and busty girl. So I was like struggling, and me and the tech was laughing about how short I am and trying to get my. So I could imagine how women with smaller boobs can get. And also, I will say that it is uncomfortable, but it can save
Yeah,
your life.
it can save your life. So ladies, if you have not got a mammogram, and even if they say you're too young, can you still request to
Advocate.
have one?
Yes, advocate for yourself. Yes, definitely. And it shouldn't matter if you have family history, but if you do have family history, definitely get the mammogram. Get your genetic testing. A simple test could save generations. My brother had multiple myeloma, and my father had myeloma. They both were living at the time, and my father was in remission. And what I didn't know though was he came out of remission, and I didn't know. He told everybody not to tell me. My brother was living with terminal multiple myeloma at the time, but I believe that their cancer is either hereditary in Black men, which there needs to be more research done. And I've been telling people to contact the Multiple Myeloma Institute because I met some people at a cancer event, and I told them about my father and brother. And they said, you should go to our offices at, I think it's near NIH here in DC, but I'm sure there are so many doctors' offices and places you can go to get tested because they're looking for more Black people to be tested for the genetic mutation of myeloma. And that's something that a lot of people aren't talking about.
You had an auntie moment, right? And when you had to tell your family, it was very difficult. So there are going to be some ladies
Yeah.
who are watching this and they have just found out, or either they are going through this. Some may not have told their families yet. Some are in the beginning stages and may have told some. And some women, they're still trying to process this because there's fear there. A lot of times when you hear breast cancer, you see the pain the women go through, you see the treatments, and then you see how sometimes they even lose their lives. And so there's a lot of fear surrounded around it. So what are some things you can tell the ladies on how you were able to cope through it, just emotionally, just your thought process, just getting through the day? Because when you start taking treatments, there are side effects.
Yeah, yeah. I'm really strong in my faith. You know, when you think about how you grew up, or when you think about going and worshiping at church, going to Bible study, serving in ministry. When I was diagnosed, I was a ministry leader for the young adult ministry. And I, it was a no brainer because the first thing I heard was God's voice. Everybody doesn't hear God's voice first, and I get it. Or they don't know how, they don't have that relationship to know how to hear. And that's when you lean on those people in your life. And my dark days, it was just me and Jesus. And I have to be honest about that. I was told by my landlord of 9 years that I had to move during chemo. So I was homeless. I lived with a radiation burn. And I don't like to talk about it too much because people think, oh, she got burned, so I'm going to get burned. No, everyone's situation is different. First of all, everyone's body is different. Everyone's doctors are different. I felt like the doctor I had, that's why I never tell anyone where I had radiation, because I feel like the doctor I had did not realize just how bad it was until it was too late, because that doctor worked at different hospitals and they weren't at the hospital that I was at every day I was having radiation. They were only there once a week. So my radiation should not have gone past my 13th treatment, but it went to my 21st treatment. And I was
Oh,
getting
wow.
5 rounds of radiation. Yes. I was burned so severely that I have no breast skin left. It burnt off. So I had to have my burn debrided. It was extremely painful. And again, this is an anomaly, okay? Like, people don't have burns like this. But it got to the point to where I had to do my own wound care for several months because they wouldn't even do my wound care in the clinic anymore. And then when I requested a wound care specialist, I was denied more than once. It wasn't until I had a really bad infection in my chest wall in the burn, and I almost died of sepsis, that my breast surgeon had to call the radiology oncologist and say, you need to get this girl some help because I'm struggling to live. So
Wow.
living with that burn, those were probably my darkest days. And having to move and losing someone I considered family, my landlord, we didn't have a falling out or anything. She just wanted me out of the blue. I was not prepared. I had nowhere to go. I don't come from a family that has houses for people to move into back in Missouri. I was here by myself. And I had sorority sisters and people who had at first said they could take me in, and I think they realized that taking in a person who has a chronic illness is a lot. And I had at least 2 offers for a place to stay rescinded during chemo.
Oh, wow.
So the one person that let me stay with them didn't really have a room, but he made it work. And he was my angel on earth, and now he's my angel above. But my friend took me in. I stayed there for about 3 months or so. Almost no, I stayed there for about a month and a half, and it felt like forever though because I'm driving myself to chemo. I'm exhausted. The side effects were not fun, but Hollywood be lying because I didn't lose no weight and I didn't throw up. I threw up one time during chemo, and that's because I didn't take my nausea medicine. So they have medicine now that prevents you from being sick from the chemo. And as if you take it like you're supposed to, okay, you will not throw up. But you got to take it like you're supposed to. That's how I understand it. And that one time that I didn't take my nausea medicine, I just went to Chick-fil-A.
Uh,
Yeah.
what about hair loss? Did you experience your hair coming out? And so you did
India.
have
My Afro's name is India. And I have a chapter in my book called The Journey of India. I had a haircut party. And it's funny because losing my hair was not hard. Losing my boobs was not hard. That's the truth. The hardest thing on my journey was losing my home. It had nothing to do with kids. I had to tell her, my hair, she has to go away for a little while because she's sick. And I actually told my boobs, y'all gotta go because y'all killing me. But I have a very different outlook on things than a lot of people. People would ask me, what do you do? I said, oh, I fight cancer. What do you do? And they're like, what? And they go, oh, you're a doctor. And I'm like, I do have a PhD, but it was like, oh, so what do you mean you fight cancer? I was like, I'm a breast cancer survivor. And they're like, oh, and they don't realize at first that, oh, I have a hat on. I hated my wig because it was horrible. But I would always wear a scarf or a hat, and I didn't have boobs. But if I wear a jacket or something, you really couldn't tell. So I think that then it started to click because I never looked sick. I did my makeup the way I did it today. And yeah, I just never looked like my situation. Even today, to this day, I don't look like my situation. And that's just God's grace and mercy on me, to be honest with you.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you a few questions, and it's probably during different phases of your journey. So,
Okay.
in the very first phase,
Mhm.
what are some suggestions you can give ladies that when they go to the doctor and they're requesting a mammogram, or they may have felt something, and then the doctor is saying that's just normal? Sometimes around your cycle time, it may feel a little lumpy because your hormones, like whatever, and so it's nothing. What are some things you can tell them so that they can advocate and say, you know what? I still feel like I want to get some testing done.
Mm-hmm. First and foremost, touch your boobs, ladies. They're yours. You grew them yourself. Okay. America is so taboo about women's bodies. They're ours. Touch them. Be familiar with them. Look at them. Even I remember when I was younger, I was told to look at my vagina. Look at her. Be familiar with her. And so when So that even before you feel something, even before you go to the doctor, then when you do feel something and you're concerned, or you have pain or a rash or something, discharge from your nipple, and you go to the doctor, one, take somebody with you. Two, take a notebook or record it on your phone or something, right? Because sometimes we forget things that are said in those spaces. And doctors are used to that whole recording things in their minds and they have to take notes. But if a doctor tells you this and you heard that, at least you can have something to refer back to. Or you'll have that family member or friend that heard something as well to see, and you can check with them. And then if they deny you, advocate for yourself. Ask them why. Ask to talk to a social worker. Ask to speak to a breast navigator, because the breast navigator and social worker are your advocates in the hospital or in the doctor's space. So don't settle with them saying no. And then you also have to be able to ask questions. And I've had to ask my oncologist to pause before, because he looks at it as, oh, I have a PhD, so he can talk about things. And I'm like, okay, so let's go back to the beginning of part. Let me ask questions about this. And then that's when he learned to break it down to me. Because sometimes doctors don't want to break it down too far, because then it'll confuse a patient and make a patient uncomfortable. So he understood that you can talk to me and break down the data and let me see the data, and I'm going to receive that better than you just saying something and I don't get it. So those are things that you can do when you are concerned about something, or you're told you have to have something done or not have something done.
And then the second phase of it, radiation burn, because I have never heard of radiation burn before. So when it comes to,
this is some of my burn here.
Oh, wow.
And then
Oh, wow.
Yeah. This is how they took my lymph nodes. And so they radiated me really good there because of the positive lymph nodes. And then, so all of this is my stomach. Just so you know, they took my stomach and plopped it up here on both sides, but then this side fell. Whole nother conversation. We can talk about surgeries now, or we can have a whole nother show about the surgeries. But so yeah, radiation burn. So I wasn't told to use Aquaphor when I first started radiation. I think that could have prevented my burn from being as severe as it was. I don't know why they didn't tell me until I told them I had these bumps at the bottom, and it was bothering me. Like my clothes was rubbing it and things. And then I started putting Aquaphor on it, and they said I had to have some fresh aloe. I didn't know where to get fresh aloe. Now I see fresh aloe everywhere. That's how it works, right?
Yeah.
I just didn't know where to go. I had a lot going on. I was making sure I had a place to live, trying to keep my bills paid because I had no job, and just trying to stay alive. But yeah, so when you start, the skin tearing is normal because your skin will regenerate, right? Skin tear, it'll heal. But it's when it start looking burnt. And that's when I really got concerned. And what I learned was the bumps that I was feeling were blisters. They didn't look like blisters to me, but they were. And then as time went on, the skin got darker, and then it would bleed. It would in my book I describe it, the stages of my radiation burn, like food, because I feel like people could relate to that. So it looked like a brisket that was like raw in the middle, because you can see the red, and then sometimes the blood would come. And then it looked like a salmon when they debrided it, like a nice pink salmon, whole area. And it was flat. And then it looked like pickle loaf. Do you know what pickle loaf is, Demira?
No. I'm gonna have to look it up.
So my grandmother is from a little bitty town in Kansas called Chanute, Kansas. You blink, you miss it, okay? And she loved pickle loaf. And pickle loaf it's that meat with the spots in it, like the different colors. So it has like
hog head cheese. A hog head cheese.
So hog head cheese, my grandmother liked that too. Yeah, that's different from pickle loaf. So
Okay.
pickle loaf is like a meat with pimento and olive in it and circles things in it. It's gross. But anyway, the things that are in it are pickled. That's what's called pickled loaf. Anyway, you Google it. That's what my burn looked like at one point. I'm thinking, oh, it's healing, right? Because it's like turning brown on the outside and it got little white spots and it's healing. And then it got to the point where, and I later learned it's called slough. Slough is just where all the bacteria and the mucus and everything gathers in one spot. And ironically, that spot it shifted at times, which is weird to me because I took pictures almost every day. And it was such a godsend when I had to describe in detail my burn and the stages of my burn when I was writing my book. Yeah, I took pictures almost every day. And so it looked like someone snorted deeply. This is a terrible visual, I know, but you'll understand. And spit on my body. And that's what it looked like sitting there. And the itching. It was healing from the inside out, literally and figuratively. So even on the surface from the inside out, I mean from the outside in, and then inside of me from the inside out. So when it was healing from the inside out, it's like on the surface it had stopped healing, but on the inside I could feel the itch.
Oh, wow.
This does not happen to most people. I can't stress that enough, okay? But the itch, at times I wanted to die. That's how bad it was. The itch was worse than pain. So I was on, and this is at the height of the opioid epidemic, okay? 2017. I was on Oxy and I was on fentanyl patches. And on top of that, I put lidocaine directly on the burn to numb it so it wouldn't be painful. I had a whole little system. Mind you, I didn't get any wound care help. Okay. I learned this from my breast surgeon. He's the one that prescribed the lidocaine to put directly on my burn, not the radiology oncologist, which is where the burn occurred. Yeah. They saw me in the radiology oncology clinic for 2 months. And so that's February to April. So I guess February, March, April. Okay, let's say that. April, they were like, okay, you're on your own. You got to find your own bandage materials. You got to find your own this, your own that. And I had this big old burn on my chest, and it was big. Okay, so it was like this, all of this underneath here, and it was so painful I couldn't bring my arm down. So I had to have a year of physical therapy just to be able to lift my arm higher than here, because my arm I would rest on my head like this, and it got to where I had issues with my shoulder from that for a whole year. Yeah. So in order for me to be able to do this, I had to go to physical therapy for a whole year for it, because I couldn't, if I put my arm down, it hurts. So it was crazy. I'm allergic to adhesive tape that I learned after my mastectomy. And it's even on my medical ID bracelet. I'm allergic to penicillin, adhesive tape. So the only tape that I could use when I had my burn was Band-Aid brand paper tape. I'm gonna say that again. Band-Aid brand paper tape. And it's only sold at Target.
When did you find out you were cancer free?
No
What did
one
that day look like?
No one is ever cancer free. There is no evidence of disease.
Okay.
And I know people say cancer free because that's like the hot term to say, but it's not medically accurate. Okay. So when you are in remission, that means you're NED, no evidence of disease, NED. I didn't know because remember I had that whole year of Herceptin and then I had the radiation burn. So I had to ask my oncologist, am I in remission? I don't know. And the burn threw things off, right? Because having that, it was like I had that for a year, and then the reason the burn is gone is because I had reconstruction. So I will say, honestly, after the Herceptin was done. So so I had chemo until December 2016. I started radiation in January 2017. My burn started February 13th, 2017.
Oh, wow.
And a year after that, February 14th, 2018, I was released from ICU to have my boobs, what is it called? Reconstructed.
Reconstruction.
Yeah, I ended up having to be in ICU because one of my boobs failed. And that rarely happens too, but I just feel like whenever they say less than 1%, more than likely it's going to happen to me.
So when you say your boobs failed, what does that mean? Your boobs?
So one of my flaps. So when you have reconstruction and you don't want foreign objects in your body, right? That means you don't want implants. Depending on your body type, you have a lot of options. Was one of the curvy girls, so I had a lot of options. I was able to, I thought anyway, I was going to have what's called tram flap, where they take your stomach muscle and tissue and they don't disconnect it from your body. They just swing it up through your body and create your boobs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I thought I was going to have that. But my radiation burn was so bad, the doctor I wanted to do the tram flap, she's a Black woman. I love her to this day. But she would see me in her office while the whole time I had my burn, and we would just talk about my options. And it got to the point to where when my burn wasn't healing, she said she was concerned that the radiation had fried my blood vessels in my chest, like right through here.
Oh.
So her bringing the flap up, she was worried that she wouldn't be able to reconnect those blood vessels. So she suggested that I find a specialist for the deep flap, DIEP. The chapter in my book is called Rolling in the Deep. Adele's album had just come out too, so it was like it worked out perfectly. But yeah, so when you're rolling in the deep, that means that they take your fupa, your stomach, and they take it off. They disconnect your stomach muscle, they cut it. It's like a cosmetic tummy tuck, right? But they take what they remove and they use it to make your boobs. And they did it, and everything was fine for about 2 hours in recovery. It was an 11-hour surgery. Okay. Everything was fine until I kept feeling something that felt like pain. When you come out of anesthesia, you should not feel pain. You should feel groggy, achy, not pain. I felt pain. Okay. And so I told my best friend to get the nurse, and the nurse then got the doctor, the resident, and the resident was like, get the surgeon back here. The surgeon had left because she had been on her feet all day doing my surgery. Get the surgeon back because this boob was swelling. It was like 25% bigger than it was previously. So they have a tool called the Doppler. And if you've ever had a child, similar to like an ultrasound, right, where they can hear the heartbeat, for the Doppler checks for blood flow, and you can hear it. And my blood flow had decreased to where it stopped in this boob because my blood was clotting. That is something that's just in Neosha's DNA, right? It ain't genetic or anything like that I know of. It's just something that some people clot, some people don't. Okay. And in this case, this side clotted. Now, the joke, okay, guys got jokes. The joke is there was no cancer over here. There was no radiation burn over here. This guy was just chilling. I guess it wanted some attention. She had to come back to the hospital and try to save it. She took another 4 hours. So went from an 11-hour surgery, a couple of hours in recovery, rushed back into the OR, another 4 hours. So a total of 15 hours of surgery, only to find out she couldn't save it. So I was flat on one side for 3 months. Going back to the perks of being a curvy girl, right? I had options. This boob is made out of my back. So there's a back muscle right at your bra line called the latissimus dorsi muscle. And for me anyway, it was a pretty hefty muscle because this boob had to be reduced at one point. It was so big because this boob can only get so big because it doesn't have breast skin. It's stomach skin. So they have to match. And I don't know so they have to match. So right now, and I'm preparing for a surgery tomorrow, this outpatient where they're going to take fat from different parts of my body and put more fat in here because this boob is going down a little bit.
So will you have to continue doing that, adding fat throughout the years to keep them balanced?
Probably, but for me, it's not an inconvenience because I hate my thighs. And I'm glad they're taking some fat from my thighs. I don't have love handles because my doctor did cut those off. You got the little fat behind the left handle on your back. And there are places that they just suck the fat from. So that's cool. It's like the gift that keeps on giving. But most women don't go back for as many revisions as I have had because of the burn. It was a Hail Mary anyway. Like, honestly, my surgeon was worried that it wasn't going to work on this side. So that's why books called God's Got Jokes for a reason, because it didn't work on the other side. So they use my latissimus muscle. They swing it around. So this is not what's called a free flap. This is connected. So the nerves in this boob here, I can feel in my back a little bit. I know it's kind of weird, but yeah.
Wow, this is an amazing story. I want to talk about, I know we had the conversation of older ladies and how they don't get tested. So can you talk about that a little bit? Because this is really important, ladies. If you have women in your family, or if you're older, your sisters, cousins, nieces, women in the church, if you're on the committee, like, this needs to be a conversation.
And I'm planning that talk for my church for September. Yeah. So I look 30 and I'm 44. So regardless, they're going to look at me like I'm young and blah, blah, blah. But because I know older women who've been diagnosed with breast cancer at 70 and are 90 surviving, I've met women like that. And you can't have a spirit of fear if you trust in God. You can't have a spirit of pride, right? Like, you don't want everybody poking and prying at you if you trust in God. So you have to have faith. I don't have children, but I have family. I got 4 nephews and a niece from my younger sister. And then I got a plethora of other extended nieces and nephews from my cousins. I feel like I had something to live for. And you have to fight for those who depend on you, who you love, and who want to see you here. I had a woman once, I gave a talk at a church right outside of Philadelphia, room full of older Black women. And one woman said, "Oh, I don't have to get mammograms anymore." And I said, "Oh, did you have a mastectomy too?" And she said, "No, I've never had breast cancer. Why don't you have to get mammogram?" She said, "Oh, because I'm 75 years old, I'm 80 years old, and my doctor said I ain't got to go back." And I said, "What?" I was shocked. I get it. You think, what's the point? Because she's not going to do treatment. She's not going to do surgery. She's, up in age.
Menopause has
But
passed.
why would you take that option away from her? Because some women want to fight to the end. People are living to be 110 years old easily nowadays. So just because you're 90, you got 20 good years left. So I encourage women to please, one, like I said, touch your boobs. They're yours. You grew them yourself. If you don't feel comfortable touching your boobs, have your husband, your partner, call your daughter over to touch your boobs once a month. And something that the breast cancer organizations do is touch them on the first. If you don't know of a good routine to have, touch them on the first. There's no pricking involved with touching your boobs. There's no blood pressure cuff that may or may not work involved with touching your boobs. And that simple check once a month could save your life.
Amen to that. There are some women who have had their breasts removed and they're used to having breasts and now they don't. And when they're trying to get dressed and go places, there's just some insecurity issues there.
Yeah.
Right? How did you deal with that?
I felt like it was temporary. I felt this is what I have to go through to get to where I am now. I felt like I don't want anything in me or around me that's killing me. I don't eat white food. I don't eat white rice. I don't eat white sugar. I don't eat white bread, because white foods are bleached. Bleach could wake up the cancer cells in my body that are dormant. There are things I don't do. I don't eat a lot of microwave food. I heat up food in the oven. I don't want anything. I don't heat up food. And then if I do heat up food in the microwave, not in a plastic container. I don't care if they say it's BPA free. Always in a glass container. These are things that I did for myself. I just feel not having my breasts means that I'm going to live. Not having my originals, let me be very clear. And I didn't mind having reconstruction. Some women have a problem with it. And I have to admit, if you're thin, if you're very athletic, you may not have the parts to create your boobs. I was okay with not having boobs for a brief time. But however, I didn't know it was gonna be that long. I
Mm,
didn't have boobs for almost 2 years.
mm,
I thought by the summer of 2017, I would have boobs
mm,
because I would be done with radiation, be done with chemo, and I can do reconstruction. Or
mm,
at least by the fall of 2017, because I would be done with Herceptin. And it still took two different parts of my body even to get what I had. And I've made peace with that because I'm here. But I always think about the fact that it was so cool just throwing a baseball cap and a t-shirt and not have to worry about doing my hair and not finding a bra to match my panties or putting on a bra, just throwing my t-shirt. I'm throwing a tank top and t-shirt sometimes, just depends. So that was freeing.
Is that an option for women to not have nipples, or they don't get nipples when they have their breasts removed?
Good question. So there are women who have nipple sparing mastectomies. I
Mm,
had hoped for that, but I realized that where my tumor was positioned, it was in my milk duct.
mm,
So the nipple had to go because it was right there. So it was right there. Some women do, but women keep their nipples because it's psychological.
if you can go back, like right before your journey to your younger self, and if you had to have a conversation with yourself, what are some things you would say? Because you've been through a lot.
Yeah. One, I'd be like, take the job. There were some opportunities that I had that the arrogance of having a terminal degree caused me to be very selective about where I wanted to work.
Mm,
And when I said I don't look like my situation, I just got a notice of possible eviction yesterday. And I still haven't found that full time sustaining job. And it's not that there's a shortage of jobs, it's just you got to find the right fit. And now you have to be mindful of your stress levels and other things. I
mm,
can't have a job that don't have benefits
mm,
because Obamacare saved my life, but Obamacare will have to go if I'm working full time. And I have to be able to afford healthcare if my job doesn't allow it. But then I had a job last year, full time job, great salary, but they didn't have healthcare. They didn't have benefits. They gave you a wellness stipend for benefits that you paid your own. But as a survivor, I can't go to the marketplace just anytime to get healthcare. And it's way more expensive. Even though Obamacare is supposed to eliminate the pre-existing condition thing, I have to be 10 years out in order to get my own healthcare.
oh,
And I
wow.
didn't know that. Yep. I thought maybe 5, but at the time I was 7 years out. But you have to be 10 years.
Oh,
So I have to have employer health care. I had an opportunity to possibly work at the newly transferred Facebook offices here. I had a friend who wanted to connect me with a hiring manager there. And I was like, oh, I don't want to work in tech. And, again, it's the arrogance. Take the job. Also, I wish I had advocated harder to not have radiation or to stop my radiation. That was something that I don't regret necessarily, but I do wish I had advocated harder for that. And the issue with my landlord putting me out and not being able to find a sustained place to live for so long, because I moved 5 times in 3 years.
oh, wow.
Yeah. I don't know if I could tell myself anything else about that time.
Mm,
I think I did the best I could do with what I had. But I'm neurodivergent, so I suffer from a condition called rejection sensitive dysphoria. And there are times when, for years, I would cry thinking I did something wrong to her for her to put me out. And to this day, people ask me, why did she do that to you? You saying she's a good person and all that, you have all these great things to say about her, but then at the worst time in your life, she just left you. And I said, I prayed about it, and God never left me nor forsake me.
mm,
So I am not going to dwell on some of the worst things that have happened to me in my life, because through it all, God kept me.
mm.
through it all.
Mm.
Even now, me being so far behind on my rent because I haven't worked, and I've been praying about it, and I've had my moments. But I've talked to my pastor and different things, and God's gonna work it out. I know He always does.
Right.
So yeah, but being homeless was really hard. It was scary. Yeah, that was hard. Something else I think I wish that I had done more to spend more time with my father because he passed away right before I started chemo and it was sudden. It wasn't expected. So I wish I had done more to spend more time with him.
Mm.
So yeah.
Let's talk to the ladies real quick. Let's give them your social handles
Mhm.
and tell them the way to purchase your book. And you're going through a lot. So if you wanted to give some information on if they wanted to donate or cash
Mhm.
app you to help you, and then you can also
Oh,
put that on, yeah, to help you.
do not buy this book from Jeff Bezos. And if you don't know who Jeff Bezos is, he is the founder and owner of Amazon. He has enough money. He just bought a whole spaceship to go to the moon. Please go to my website, neoshacponder.com. And go to Guys Got Jokes, and it's a whole little contact and purchase there on my website. Fill out the form. Also, on my website, where the form is, you can see all of my payment options. So I have Zelle, I have Cash App, I have Venmo, I have PayPal. If you want to mail me a check, just email me, and I'll send you my mailing address. But my book is called Guys Got Jokes, and something that you just think is always just a book, right? I think that the paperback is a great companion to the audiobook. And the big reason why is because each chapter in my book has one, they all have really cool names. I'm pretty creative like that, but each chapter has a QR code. You scan the QR code and you can see pictures and listen to music from that chapter. And they all, each one has its own page on my website, and you only can access it through the QR codes.
Mm.
So you can't just click on my website on your browser and find it. It ain't in there. It's only through these QR codes. And I was the only author that had done that. And it was so funny when I was trying to get the layout together. I had to do an extra session with the copy editor and the layout editor to get the QR codes right. I have 17 chapters and an author's note, and all of them have a QR code, and they all have a page, and there's music and there's pictures from that chapter. So if I'm talking about Pam, you want to know what Pam looked like? Scan the QR code at the end of the chapter.
Wow,
Pam was
that's
my mama.
neat. That's neat. Yeah. All
I had
right.
to use my PhD in media in some way, Demira. That's how I did it.
Social handles like Facebook and Instagram and all that.
I do not share my Facebook. I don't add friends on Facebook because that's only for like my close friends and family.
Okay.
So my Twitter, and it's gonna always be Twitter. Mama name it Twitter. I'ma call it Twitter. Is at Ponder on that. Yeah. That's
Okay.
back when I thought I would be an influencer at this stage in my life. My Instagram is, because I had students that forced me to get an Instagram, is Dr. Doctor underscore Ponder. My last name, Ponder, like to think. So it's Dr. underscore Ponder. That's Instagram. My LinkedIn is Neosha C Ponder, comma PhD. So if you just look up Neosha, I'm sure I'll just come up. And my name is spelled with an O, pronounced with an A, courtesy of my mama Pam. But Neosho is a city in Southwest Missouri.
Are there any groups or any nonprofits you want to tell the ladies about if they're
Yeah.
survivors
And
and they
they're all on my website as well.
Okay.
They're all on my website. So on my website, if you go to the hashtag touch your boobs, as soon as I get a job, I'm gonna get that trademark. But touch your boobs, and it has all the organizations that I am actively involved with in one way or another.
Oh.
So when the right before the pandemic, I came across an organization, an online organization called For the Breast of Us. It's a community of women of color who have been affected by breast cancer. So For the Breast of Us, they have great merch. I will say they have the cutest merch. A lot of the stuff that I wear, like I have a cute shirt that says "Cancer, been there, done that." No, been there, beat that. I wore that tank top yesterday.
Oh, wow.
So I am a lead advocate for, it's called Angel Lead, for the Tiger Lily Foundation. And the Tiger Lily Foundation is a foundation that was founded by a survivor who was triple negative, and she was diagnosed at 31, and now she's almost 51. So she's one of the, it's sad that we are 41% more likely to die of triple negative breast cancer than our white counterparts. So she's Mama Karma, she beat the odds with triple negative breast cancer. The Tiger Lily Foundation, if you want to be an advocate, we have the best training program for advocates. It's free. You just sign up on the tigerlilyfoundation.org website and go to Angel Advocates. And they'll also ask you, did an angel refer you? You can, it's a drop down menu, just select my name. But there's a training, and it's intensive and not in a difficult way, but it's you will be very well versed on breast cancer. I didn't know anything about hormone positive breast cancer until I did the angel advocacy training. Another great thing about the angel advocate program is we actively advocate on Capitol Hill here in DC to get funding to end the disparities in breast cancer, like doctors not telling patients about clinical trials, doctors not telling patients the full extent of their diagnosis or treatment options because they're poor or they're Black or they're young or they're Hispanic or they're an immigrant. All these disparities and these barriers to healthcare exist. So we advocate for more funding, more resources, and awareness for those barriers and disparities. And we have toolkits on the website, the whole thing. Another organization that I help with and participate in is Touch Breast Cancer Alliance, the Black Breast Cancer Alliance. So Touch, the Black Breast Cancer Alliance, was founded by Miss Ricky Fairley, who is also a triple negative breast cancer survivor. And she also has a offshoot of her organization, the Black Breast Cancer Alliance, is called When We Trial. It's a whole website dedicated to clinical trials. Clinical trials could be a whole nother show for you, but we are only 5% of clinical trial participants, Black people. 5%. All these drugs and everything we put in our system, and there's not even enough representation to see if it even works for us. So that's something that you can't, if we don't participate in clinical trials, how do we know it works for us? So clinical trials are really important, and there's a huge disparity in those as well, because if you don't have childcare, if you're a single mother, or if you don't have money to get to the place, or if you can't afford to take off work. So we advocate, again, to get federal dollars to help people so they can participate in these clinical trials. And there are other organizations. Oh my God, I can't think of all of them now. But
they can go on your website and look.
I mean,
a lot, yeah.
And we have angel advocates all over the country. We have some overseas, and that's what I love about these organizations. For the rest of us, we're called baddies, breast cancer baddies, and for the Touch Black Breast Cancer Alliance, it's blessties, because we're blessed. I love that. And so, yeah, I'm also a part of, the Young Survival Coalition. And that is a national organization for young women diagnosed with breast cancer. And if you're a woman of color diagnosed with breast cancer, please get involved with the Young Survival Coalition, because we are underrepresented in a lot of ways, because a lot of us don't know about it.
What is your favorite scripture that you just stand on?
It's tattooed on my wrist. It's hard to see because I wear all my bands and everything. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. So, and it's funny because my church, Reed Temple AME Church, for the next 3 months, that is our theme, to total trust. And so I encourage you all to don't lean on your own understanding. In all ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your crooked path straight. And that's what I've been telling myself every day.
Okay. Ladies, that is Dr. Miesha Ponder. I am Demira Virgil, and this is Kweenduhm Conversations Podcast. Thank you, Dr. Ponder.
You're welcome. God bless.
God bless. Hello, beautiful people. I'm Demira Virgil, your host at Kweenduhm Conversations Podcast, where we empower women one podcast at a time. At Kweenduhm, I'm not just a host, I am a creator of many things that reflect the narratives and testimonies of survivors just like you. Visit Kweenduhm.com and discover a collection infused with meaning, from candles and aroma melts to prayer books, journals, apparel, and canvas art. Each piece carries a story, a survivor's journey, and a testament to resilience. And a special thanks to our sponsor, The Rose Co. at roseco.store. Experience the best hair where beauty meets luxury. Visit roseco.store today and support a small women-owned business. Your support truly matters, as it empowers young women and contributes to their success. I love to see young women stepping out on faith and making their mark on the world.